Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping straight into the tangled web of political theory to discover why it's the inescapable, invisible force that's shaping our daily lives. Whether you realize it or not, the ideas we're going to unpack dictate literally almost everything you do.
Here is our roadmap. We'll start with what exactly politics is, dive into the core of political theory, look at why it actually matters today, and finally, wrap up with how to put this theory into practice.
All right, Section 1. What exactly is politics? Public service versus dirty scams.
Ask 10 different people what politics is, and you're going to get 10 totally different answers. It's a stark contrast. Political leaders love to call it a noble public service, a way to build society and solve our collective problems. But let's be real. For a lot of us, the word politics just screams manipulation and false promises. Like when a colleague blindly agrees with the boss just to snag a promotion, we instantly call that dirty politics.
It's a super cynical view, right? Picture a frustrated mother dragging her son away from a group of politicians, yelling at him to retire from politics at once because he thinks he can get away with lying and cheating. It's kind of funny, but it hits the nail on the head. A huge chunk of people see politics as just fundamentally selfish.
Because of all that negativity, it's so tempting to just wash our hands of the whole thing and say, I'm staying out of politics. But we really can't. Mahatma Gandhi actually made a brilliant point about this. He said politics envelops us like the coils of a snake, and we literally have absolutely no choice but to wrestle with it. You just cannot have a functioning society without some kind of collective decision-making. And honestly, ignoring that collective decision-making is downright dangerous, because what the government does directly dictates your daily survival. If a government is corrupt or drops the ball, conflicts can turn violent, markets close down, suddenly you can't even buy basic necessities. Schools might shut their doors, the syllabus gets left hanging, and boom, you're shelling out big bucks for extra coaching just to pass your exams. On the flip side, good policies mean access to decent education and solid jobs. So yeah, you're wrapped up in the snake's coils whether you like it or not.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core of political theory and the ideas that shape constitutions.
Now that we know we have to wrestle with politics, we need a game plan. Enter political theory. And hey, we aren't talking about some dusty, boring academic subject here. Political theory is basically the living DNA of our constitutions. It's the systematic study of heavy-hitting values like freedom, equality, and justice. It essentially trains us to look at the political chaos happening around us and think about it rationally, instead of just reacting on pure emotion.
And these concepts didn't just pop up overnight. They carry some serious historical weight. We're talking way back in the 5th century BC, with giants like Plato and Aristotle hashing out monarchy versus democracy. Fast forward to the 18th century, and you've got Rousseau fighting for fundamental freedom, while Marx is championing equality. Then into the 20th century, visionary thinkers like Gandhi and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar were intensely debating the true meaning of Swaraj and how to protect minorities. The very rules we live by right now, they were hammered out in those exact historical debates.
Which brings us to Section 3. Why theory matters today and the unfinished business of freedom.
Now you might be sitting there thinking, wait a second, haven't we already achieved freedom and democracy? We've got a constitution, we hold elections. Isn't all this theory stuff old news?
Well, not exactly. There are 3 very distinct reasons why this is an ongoing battle, which proves that political theory is just as absolutely crucial today as it was back in ancient Greece. Let's break them down. First off, freedom and equality definitely haven't been implemented everywhere at the exact same pace. Sure, we might have equal political rights on paper, meaning everybody gets one vote, but thanks to deep-rooted economic and social discrimination, true equality simply doesn't exist everywhere yet. Someone might have the legal right to vote, but if they're facing severe caste discrimination or living in extreme poverty without basic necessities, well, freedom is still just a distant dream for them.
Second, interpreting our Constitution is kind of like playing chess or cricket. As you actually get in there and play the game, you start discovering new, much broader meanings for the rules. Our fundamental rights are constantly being reinterpreted by the courts to fit new realities. For instance, the basic right to life was eventually reinterpreted by the courts to actively include the right to a livelihood. The theory literally has to adapt to reality on the ground.
And finally, our fast-paced modern world is creating entirely new battlegrounds. Just think about the internet. Global communication is incredible. It lets activists network together to protect forests, but at the same time, it allows terrorists to coordinate. This creates a massive clash. You've got everyday netizens demanding strict internet privacy for their online shopping and personal emails, completely at odds with governments who are demanding tighter regulations to stop global terror networks.
So how much freedom should we actually have online? Should the government be allowed to read private emails to catch criminals? Political theory gives us the mental toolkit to tackle these incredibly modern, complex questions.
All right, last stop, Section 4, putting theory into practice and the Socratic journey.
Let's apply this to something you probably experience all the time. Think about someone jumping the queue at a shop or a doctor's clinic. It makes our blood boil, right? That's because deep down, we totally crave equality of opportunity. But here's where it gets nuanced. We happily accept special, separate lines for the elderly or the disabled. We recognize that sometimes special treatment is totally justified. Yet, at the exact same time, we often completely ignore the people who are too poor to even stand in that line and buy goods in the first place. So a simple daily annoyance actually forces us to constantly rethink what a concept like equality really means in practice.
And this whole idea of questioning the everyday brings us right to the ancient Greek thinker Socrates. As one of his students noted, he had this amazing knack for revealing the hidden inconsistencies in what people believed. Socrates was considered the wisest man in Athens for one simple reason. He absolutely refused to just accept popular beliefs at face value. He used pure reason to force people to see the glaring holes in their own logic.
Take this classic example from Plato's The Republic. Socrates is chatting with his peer, Cephalus, who argues that justice is simply speaking the truth and paying your debts. Sounds perfectly reasonable, doesn't it? But Socrates hits him with a wild hypothetical. He asks, what if a friend leaves some weapons with you while he's completely in his right mind, but later comes back to ask for them when he's completely lost his mind? Should you really return the weapons then? Cephalus has to admit, well, no, obviously not. And boom, Socrates proves that blindly paying a debt isn't always justice. He forces us to dig deeper and add some much-needed nuance to our core values.
And honestly, that is the true superpower of political theory. It's not about memorizing quotes from dead philosophers. It's about using your own reason to spot the inconsistencies in the world around you. So, based on everything we've just unpacked today, from wrestling with the snake of politics to using the Socratic method, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Where in your own life do you see the fundamental rules of freedom and equality being rewritten right now? Keep questioning, keep observing, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.